I'm going to give you a very quick tour of Humbug version 0.9. This is a brand new software release that we did earlier today. So Humbug is an AI first tool, and it's designed to allow you to use AI to build and maintain production code bases. It supports models from 6 different AI providers and a whole series of different models across all of them. We keep adding new ones over time. It's a desktop application. The reason for that is it means you maintain control over your source code and over your files and your conversations, and you can do with them as you please. So you can check them into source repositories, you can email them to people, whatever you want to do with them, they're yours. And while it looks like an IDE, it's not actually an IDE. It has some elements of that, but the fundamental of this is we want to use AI to do all of the serious work, not have humans doing it. So, for example, it's not going to try and give you code completions interactively inside of the editor because, frankly, the AI should be doing the typing. It'll do it much more quickly and much more capably. Whereas if we're relying on code completions, there's lots of chatting going backwards and forwards. It can get quite expensive, actually, as well, especially if you're using certain cloud models. So what you're seeing on the screen in front of you right now is our fundamental building block. This is a conversation. And this is a conversation from about a month ago. And this is the sort of interactive conversation you might get with using a web chat engine. Except in this case, you actually get to see some reasoning. So this is Claude 3.7 Sonnet's thinking model. So you can see the thinking as well as the answer it gives as well. But it's useful to highlight a couple of things about the interface. So I'd asked a very simple question about, can you help me think about how to build something? And you'll see those different message elements in there. You can actually copy those, and you can actually also save them. If you save them as Markdown, which means you can actually edit them and use them for other purposes later. That becomes quite important, and I'll show you why when we get to the little bit talking about metaphor. So you have this conversation view, you can scroll through it. Actually, there's some features in here now that make this much quicker to navigate than previously. You can actually skip through each message using a keyboard shortcut. But you see the response from the AI, and this can form the basis for a conversation about some design feature or some software that you want to build. In this case, it's brand new, but it could also be for an existing code base, something that you're working on. Another element of this is that wherever there's a code fragment, we try and syntax highlight it in the appropriate language. We currently support, I think, 18 different syntax highlighters, and they're all nested as well. So, for example, if you have one language that can embed another one, you'll see the syntax highlighting correctly for all of those. So, for example, HTML will highlight JavaScript and CSS. Markdown will highlight whatever language is tagged within the code fence. So you can download these fragments. You can also copy them. And you can see this conversation here where we were sort of discussing the concepts of building a planning framework, in fact, to use with an AI. So this is the concept of just a sort of normal chat interface. But where things really come to the fore is when we use a language that we designed to help us build with AI, and it's a language called Metaphor. Metaphor is very, very simple. It only has 5 keywords. I'm going to show you a ridiculously straightforward example. This is an example of a metaphor file, and it includes all 5 keywords and a description of what they're used for. And in fact, this is a template we use for doing modifications to this software itself. So a couple of important things. You highlight the role we want the AI to take. We give it a context dump, which is everything that we need it to know. This doesn't look very significant, but some of our context blocks can be very, very large. I'll show you one in a second. And then the action that we want the AI to take. So what is it that we want it to do for us? So we fill in the blanks here. And the important thing is that this allows us to be more planning, more measured and plan what we're trying to do more carefully. So we can actually put the engineering into prompt engineering. We can try things out. If they don't give us quite the results we want, we can go and make adjustments and modifications and try them again. One of the nice things about AIs is they don't tend to remember what's going on, and certainly outside of a single conversation, they don't remember at all, which means that if something doesn't work, you can simply throw it away and do something else. It also means that if you want to explore a design space, you want to consider 3 or 4 different options for something, it costs very little to actually ask the AI to explore those different elements, or ask different AIs to explore the same element. You get different answers and find the ones that give you the results that are most interesting and most closely aligned with what you want to achieve. So one of the things you can see on here is this concept of an include, and the reason for that is it allows us to have other fragments of metaphor. In this case, it's a set of Python coding rules, and we can reuse those across lots and lots of different metaphor files, and that means that we can have effectively libraries of standard metaphor chunks that we use. So, for example, you could have a standard set of coding rules that you want to use, which is what we have here. You can have different ones for different languages. You can have different things around design style and elements that are important to you. So, if you were to take this, what will happen is the metaphor compiler will combine this into the file we just saw previously and allow you to construct a prompt. Now, one of the other things in there, which is not it's empty at this point, is what we call an embed keyword that allows us to attach all sorts of other context from files. So we can attach all sorts of interesting things here and allow us to have a conversation with the AI about things that already exist. So I've got an example of that here. This was a prompt from about a week or so ago, and I was looking to make a design change within this software. There was a specific design issue where if you've got very, very large numbers of messages coming from the AI, you could overwhelm the UI potentially. And so I wanted to throttle a number of updates. And so this is a conversation, if you actually look, I'll just show you just very quickly. But if this is actually the prompt, and it was capturing all of the important elements of the files that are necessary in order to be able to make the change. And again, one of the nice things about metaphor as a structure is that we can actually use it to have a discussion about the prompt. So rather than asking the AI to build software or to design something, we can actually ask it, does it have all the information it needs before we ask it to do anything else? That actually allows us to avoid a lot of the hallucination problems that people frequently see, because the AI can tell you it doesn't know something before it tries to do it, or before it tries to guess. And unfortunately, if they don't have the information, they will try to guess. So what you can see here, though, is the result of this conversation, which was the design sketch for the feature that we actually implemented and, in fact, is in the software. There's a version of this went into version 0.8, which was the previous version. So that allows you to see what that might actually look like. And obviously we can interact with that as well. Now we do have editors. Obviously, I was showing you these metaphor files. I'll actually show you a very large one. This is the metaphor file that describes this Humbug application itself. It's actually checked into the Git repository. But this is the one that we use for having a conversation with the AIs about Humbug itself. And in fact, we have one prompt, which I'll show you towards the end, which actually allows the AI to become an expert on the design of this software. Okay, so we're now going to use that prompt I just described, which is called Humbug Expert, and actually show you how that works. So we're going to start a new metaphor conversation, and here's the metaphor file. And what you'll have is you'll have a new conversation started, and this hasn't yet been submitted. At the moment, it's defaulting to Claude Sonnet. We need a slightly bigger model because this is a very, very large prompt. And at the moment, only the Gemini models are able to handle it properly. So we'll submit the prompt to the AI, and that's now submitted. We have to wait a few seconds while it gets sent through. Okay, so you can see that Gemini has actually reviewed the information in the file. It's reviewed the description, so we can ask it some questions. So let's just ask it how the syntax highlighters work. And so the nice thing about this is this allows the AI to actually become an expert on its own tooling. So, as I say, it's quite a big prompt. It's 333,000 tokens long, so it takes a few seconds to get the responses back. Let me just leave it running for a little while. And there we go. So you're actually seeing Gemini actually streaming back the details of how the syntax highlighting engine works. This is something obviously it wasn't trained on. It doesn't know anything about the code base before this. And to put this in context, this application has about 35,000 lines of Python and about 2 to 2,500 lines of metaphor description that goes with it. And you'll actually, if you were to read through this, you'll be able to see all the details of how the various different highlighting elements work. One last feature of Humbug, and that is the terminal emulator that we have built in. So again, this was built using the same AI-powered design concepts, and in fact we actually built 4 versions of this terminal emulator over the course of 15 days, each one learning from the previous one, and allowed us to actually end up with the version you see now. So when you actually run the terminal emulator on Linux or on a Mac, you'll end up with a normal Unix type shell. If you run this on Windows, you'll get the Windows command prompt, and that then lets you launch various other things as well. What it does mean is you can run your favorite tools. So for example, in this case, we can run Vim. So there's the README file that goes along with Humbug. And you can run something like LazyGit, for example, if you want to use source code management. So that's just the final piece that allows you to use all of these sort of command line based tools. So it could be linters, it could be compilers, it could be make systems, whatever it happens to be. So anyway, with that, that's the end of the demo. If you want to find out more, please do check out the website at m6r.ai. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.